Hi, I think we are supposed to start right now the future of education, and I am Rupa Dash, and would love to know who is on the call. So would love to have a conversation on everybody's perspective on how we can reimagine and reinvent education for the future. Uh, and maybe each of us can introduce ourselves.
Sure, I'll start. Um,
Sure.
I don't have any knowledge in education, but I do think that it's a worthwhile goal to look at it and improve it. I think it can be massively improved. So I'm excited to hear about your ideas on how it can be
Okay,
improved.
awesome. Mhm. I guess we can start with having a conversation and sharing some perspective. Especially with this pandemic. Almost 1.3 million kids in U.S. are now being homeschooled, and now uh, even in U.S. There are some counties, uh, you know, 1 in every 4 child either does not have access to internet or the technology that they need to really get the benefit of homeschooling and have an interactive experience with education. So I'm doing my doctoral program with the Carnegie Institute of Advanced Learning at University of Pittsburgh. And one of my investigation is as organizations and as entrepreneurs and technology companies ed tech companies are looking at building platforms that can be engaging for and can deliver content for making education more interactive, but there is a lack of motivation and engagement from the side of learners. And how are we measuring that? How we can scale that? And how we can really measure that impact is something that I'm looking at. Um, and our is technology is helping us enough to really unleash the unique identity of each learner so that we are able to serve each learner in a unique way. And would love to ask a question here. How many of folks who are on this call do have some educational background or working on ed tech space?
I left school before I finished school. I left school because it
And
was boring as hell. It was boring. There was nothing there for me.
and if may I ask you, how did you supplement your learning, and what do you do now, and how did you get there uh, after dropping out of school?
Well, I did software development, so I learned on my own. I learned a lot of stuff on my own. I have a thirst for knowledge, so I learn a lot of things. But I dropped out of school because it wasn't interesting at all. Like there was nothing there for me to learn. It was
Okay, so would you, the other part of the thing that not many educational institutes and ed tech entrepreneurs are investigating, what is really the gap between, having these platforms and understanding, how these, learners are not given enough challenge because there is a very important researcher from Russia Brzezinski, who really investigated like how much of challenge you can really give to learners, so that they don't feel that they're over challenged or under challenged or underutilized or overutilizing their talent to really learn. And these are the things are not looked at when education is being created. Is that was your problem, like you were under your
Somewhat. Yeah, I mean that was a part of it, but also like I think that like um, the variety, the things that are taught in schools
mm-hmm,
are not necessarily the things that people want to learn at the
yeah,
point. You know, like if you're like a 16, 17-year-old person, you
mm-hmm,
know, that's, you don't particularly care about geography of the world at that point. You don't really care about history of the world at that point. You
mm-hmm,
might do. You might care about chemistry. You might care about math. You might care about something else. But
mm-hmm,
at that point, you also have a lot of other things going on in your life, you
mm-hmm,
know, which you want to pursue.
mm-hmm.
And the education becomes like something that is, it's not important because it's like, well, this stuff is boring. It's not teaching me anything. But there's other things that I want to go and do, which I know will teach me more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's something we are looking at the Carnegie Teaching Foundation, is how technology can really identify the key characteristics and attributes of a learner, so that because our identities and our cultural identities in essence are equally important to trigger learning. And these are not mainstream conversations that developers and people from the edtech industry are actually looking at. And that's why you know the learning on digital platforms is not having as much as impact and success as we would imagine it would have. um, and this is a very good point you bring up. And I come from India. Just to give a little bit of background, I come from India, and one of the problems that I have seen in our education system, which is in fact it's better than the Western countries, but in a way, the biggest problem that India would face in next coming years, in next 5 years, is the massification of skills. What I mean by that, I was on the other call a little bit on mass manufacturing talents like doctors and engineers, and preparing for them for the future of job, whereas the job market itself and the employment market itself are not quite sure what kind of talent and resources or skills they would be really looking from the talent. And there is no full prediction in that space. So if there is anybody on the call from the workforce development, and if they're recruiting talent, what you guys really look for from a candidate?
I mean, I don't want to jump in again, but like,
Yeah, go ahead.
if you're looking for a candidate, you're looking for someone who is in development or in sciences or anything like that. You're
Mm-hmm,
looking for a candidate who wants to,
mm-hmm,
he wants knowledge, he wants to learn things. You know,
mm-hmm,
um, that's if I was hiring developers, or if I was hiring scientists, or if I was hiring anything in any
mm-hmm,
kind of field. I'm
mm-hmm,
not, just to be clear, I'm not in that position. I'm not hiring people. But if I was, I would be looking for people who have that thirst for learning and thirst for knowledge
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And
in, in their area, in whatever area that you're hiring them for.
and how do you quantify that? How do you investigate that? How do you investigate their hunger?
Well, it's not easy. Definitely it's not easy. But I mean, it probably takes some expertise in the area yourself. Like if you don't know the area, then you can't quantify like how much this person cares about it. If you're
Mm-hmm.
in the area, it's a lot easier. You know,
Yeah.
if you're in medical science, for example,
Yes.
and someone comes to you and they say, these are the things I'm excited about. You know,
Mm-hmm.
these are the things I'm researching. These are the things that I want to get more knowledge about. Then you
Mm-hmm.
can quickly assess like, does this person know what, you know, does this person like know the background of the things that they want to that they want to go further into,
Mm-hmm.
or are they just making up words? You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh, I get what you're saying. There is a unique model we are implementing within our digital learning platform, which is called the Future of Schooling. And the basic principles of that has been taken from it's called the self-organized learning environment. So it really started in slums of India. So the backstory is as such. So the professor from IIT, which is like the MIT of India, started putting computers in holes in little slums. And these kids have never seen a computer, have never learned a word, have never been exposed to any learning environment. So he would watch these kids dabble on computers and figure out a way to search, figure out a way to do basic operations on the computer. And at the same time, you know, these kids also started learning very complex biology. At some point, he recently did a TED talk. So we are taking some of his self-organized organized learning environment principles to integrate into our research study to see, you know, how this can be the future of school, where a minimal, you know, uh, supervision can be a way of looking at school, and the whole school will be on the cloud. So and it also gives an opportunity for kids around the world to have an equal opportunity to learn. And in because of the pandemic, we can very clearly see, you know, how much of inequality, injustice, and how much of gap of access to technology and content still exists in some of the developed nations. Forget about the developing nations. So um, you know, this is a moment for you know, people who are on this call to share some ideas. You know, if there are some you know, wisdom models of education that you have come across that can change the future of how we learn and create future talent.
Come on, guys. Someone has something to say.
No, go ahead. You say. I mean, that's fine. I guess you know, you know, there's some good listeners. I mean, we can definitely have a good conversation here.
I mean, personally, educationally wise, I think there should be like a different aspect on it. Like you can't just educate people in technical skills. You have to educate people in a wide variety of life skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think that's something that's lacking in all education systems around the world. Maybe actually less so in say more conservative education systems. Like if you look back at say the history of I'm from Ireland, which is Catholic schooling. was
Mhm.
a long time ago. So it was very discipline based, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of places that it was very discipline based, and that
Mhm.
has been thrown out the window, right? But
Mhm.
actually, it's it is actually kind of important to not only educate people in the technical skills, but
Mhm.
also in the areas of like integrity and like doing the work. You know, like
Mhm.
that is not a thing anymore. Now it's more focused on like
Mhm.
learn the technical skills,
Mhm.
and that's it. You know, if
Mhm.
if you're good at the technical skills, you can get away with anything, which is
Mhm.
not necessarily a good thing because technical skills only take you so far. You
Yeah.
need to also be a well-rounded person. So that's like I don't know what your specific goals on education was. I am just in the Zoom call by accident, like, but that's kind of my viewpoint on like if you want to reform education, it's not only about like that. There's plenty of information about how people can learn stuff. Like we have the internet, right? Okay, and we can get information to people. The
Yeah.
people who want to learn these detailed technical skills on a
Mhm.
subject, they can
Mhm.
do that. But
Mhm.
what we're not teaching people is how to actually be a person.
Mhm.
Those kind of rounded skills.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, one of the experiments that we have done is basically taking a kid in a family where there is none of the family members have the education or have the ability to even clarify issues with education or related to learning with for a kid, which is called, and the experiment was called the grandmother encouragement. So pretty much what happens is, a digital device is given to a kid and he explores things of his own, and the grandmother or the cheerleader in the family would be at a distance, would just say, wow, how did you do this? And the kid would figure out to do himself, and none of the family members would ever say, I don't know how to do this. That's not the word they use. They use like, how did you figure this out? Can you tell me more about it? So, and the end a result that was, uh, the outcomes of this experiment really showcase that, any form of digital learning can be beneficial if the self-learning environment is introduced to kids at a very early age, rather than just prescribed a form of packaging education and putting, kids into boxes and making them learn certain things, giving them an opportunity to learn. With the pandemic,
Sure, that's learning how to learn, right? Learning
what?
how to learn, right? Learning how to learn. That's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you figure out like how you can learn stuff.
yeah, yeah. And the graphs really showed us like how the motivation of a kid really increases with the right amount of good job, or saying good job for without any intention. So these are important things, and I am just looking to find ways to collaborate with folks who are from the tech background to take this knowledge and put it into in a way that they can most benefit and serve, kids in underserved communities, and use the digital platform in a more meaningful way. Just not putting school content on platforms, animating it, and just, you know, we are seeing a revolution right now in India because there is a company which is just started by a 30-year-old school teacher. It's called Byju's, and have been recently, Disney invested a lot by introducing Disney characters into the learning platform. So pretty much the whole from grade one to grade three, all kids are introduced to Disney characters, and these Disney characters would teach them math, science, environmental science, everything that you would learn from at school. But our goal is to investigate, is that enough? Maybe every culture has its own cultural identities that kids connect with the most, and is it good enough of a platform for kids to get motivated in rural India? Who can really, do you think a kid in rural India can connect with the Disney character? Or it looks like a far-fetched dream, so the motivation really dies. And is somebody saying something?
Sorry, that was my roommate. I unmuted for a second.
Okay.
Hospital Italiano tendencia en Twitter.
Okay. So yeah, I mean,
La
these are
tendencia, trending.
Se viralizó el mail que mandó Javier Pollán, que es el jefe de clínica médica. El hospital italiano avisó a los médicos que no están en relación de dependencia que les bajará 12% del salario. La medida abarca el 90% del plantel médico que desempeña en el área de atención primaria, pero no alcanza a los de guardia.
I wish I had learned Spanish.
I wish too. If somebody can translate that would be nice. I mean, I could barely understand anything.
I think what you're talking about is very important in terms of like seeding the idea of knowledge, learning and knowledge as like something that you want to fundamentally do.
Yeah.
Like you want to seed that idea in people at a young age, that it is very important that you learn knowledge and that you are able to learn, and that you can improve. Like, it's addictive once you do it. Once you start learning things, you start loving learning things.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing we are testing right now is 3 elements of learning, and maybe this will resonate with you a lot. It's called learning in 3 phases, learning which occurs simultaneously. Actually, it's called life-wide learning, life deep learning, and lifelong learning. And which again, digital platforms are being curated just to deliver content, but that's not enough. How would you, how are your digital platforms training the individual who is interacting on these platforms to understand complex ideas in a way and solve day-to-day problems, and the other element of digital platforms is also taking away the opportunity for the younger generation to have some sort of an activism, have a say in what's going on around in their own world. So yeah, definitely these are some of the key things that we are investigating right now, and testing some of our platforms, and evaluating some of the digital platforms that are already there and giving them feedback on how they can improve. But our end goal is to come up with a platform which really nails down lifelong, life deep, and life wide learning for a learner to fully learn and embrace the skills, the talent, the identity, to embrace and to be prepared for the future, not just future of the work, because that's a very limiting thought and conversation that I see oftentimes when we talk about education.
No, exactly. That's what you don't want to teach them that. You do not want to teach them that.
Yeah.
If you want to teach people, you want to teach them
Hmm.
to appreciate knowledge and to appreciate learning and to appreciate
Yeah.
improving the
Yeah.
models of the world, right? Like there's many models that people use in the world.
Yes.
If you want to learn stuff, your
Hmm.
goal is to learn stuff and then improve
Hmm.
what other people learn. It's,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
it's a fundamental thing about learning and progress is
Yeah.
that it's not just learning something that someone else told you. It's about questioning things and being able to question things.
Hmm. And even the college dropout and school dropout rates, especially in the United States, is very high. So having the amount of technology and even like the broadband and the digital penetration in this country is much more denser than any other country in the world. Even having after that, we are seeing, kids are not highly motivated to learn, do taking self-learning as a way to learn and gain knowledge. Um, and there are certain, governments who are very strategically, we are also investigating some policies, because if you go back and look at some educational policies which absolutely is investing at in a very early age, is looking at how they can train kids for vocational training. So vocational training is becoming a mainstream learning in school. Suppose like how you can fix your cell phone, how you can build certain things, how you can troubleshoot some technological stuff. But those kind of skills have very short-term lifespan. We all know that. But still, there are certain states, especially in the United States and even the developing parts of the country, they are investing billions of dollars in reskilling and introducing new skills in the schools. But that could be one of the biggest mistake of education, because we really don't know what jobs, what skills in next 10 years will exist, and how much these skills they are investing in will be relevant. So the projection is as such that the 30 million youth will be unemployed by 2030. That's a big number. That's a big number based on how we are investing in education and how we are talking about the future of work. There's no way, no digital platform that truly embraces the idea of creating a holistic environment for kids to learn and use their head, heart, and hand in a way that can help them to become better citizens, because that should be our goal. But I don't think none of these digital platforms are aiming to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said there at the very end, encouraging them to become better citizens, is
Yeah.
also very important. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like this. I think there's two distinct aspects to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's You want to learn knowledge, you want to learn technical knowledge about a
Yeah.
subject,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a different side to it too, because there's a lot of, like, I grew up in Dublin, Ireland, right? So we have a
Yeah.
very advanced
Mm-hmm.
uh, education system. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I could have gone to college for free, no problem,
Yes.
but I
Yes.
didn't. And like, there's a there's a missing piece in our education system, which
Mm-hmm.
is the promotion of being a good citizen. We
Mm-hmm.
have the learn things because you want to learn things. We have that aspect down. We have kind of figured that out,
Mm-hmm.
but we have not figured out the other aspect of,
Mm-hmm.
you also need to learn how to be a good citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like it's a very different skill set from saying, okay, you want to be good at computers, you want to be good at medical science, you want to be good at artistic endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
Those are technical skills, right?
Yeah.
There's also the other side of that where you should educate people to be also good citizens of society,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very, very, it's not necessarily a technical skill, right? It's a social skill.
Yes.
And I think both of those are important. And I think what you're doing is very important in terms of like you want to see that kind of thing, like learning for learning's sake is extremely important, because
Mm-hmm.
once you start learning for learning's sake, then you start seeing that like, okay, this other stuff is important too.
Mm-hmm.
This society stuff is important too.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I think we have only 30 minutes for this session. I don't want to keep anybody in hold, but thank you so much for joining on this call and all the comments and your participation, and we would love to stay in touch. So this is my email if anybody wants to, jump and say hello, would love to connect. Thank you.